What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
Things get quite interesting. There is an award ceremony in the social club, one of these kind of Christmas end-of-year events, and all the senior officers are present. And then the door opens and a flustered junior officer comes up to the senior commanders and salutes and says, "Sir, it's back." And they all like, what are you talking about? The guy says, "The UFO has returned." So there is a discussion. Obviously, people, the senior commanders had been briefed that something had happened. And they were still investigating. No one knew exactly what. Or if they did, they weren't saying. So the senior officers, the two senior officers present, or I think the three, kind of batted it around between them and like, okay, who's gonna deal with this? And the deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, he said, I'll do it. And he threw together a team of about half a dozen people and sort of went out. They didn't see anything straight away. So what they decided to do was they were like, well, let's go to the location where this thing apparently landed on the first night. And they went to the site, and I kind of skipped over this when talking about the first night, but it kind of wraps up with the third night, so it doesn't matter.
You had said that there was, I just remembered this though, you had said that there was conflicting reports from an eyewitness over time as to whether or not it crashed or landed originally.
Well, I don't think anyone said it crashed.
Okay.
But there were conflicting reports over whether it was a structured craft or just a very, very bright light that the other witness couldn't see what was emitting that light. So they went to this clearing, and they already knew this, but there were the physical traces. The branches had been smashed off the trees. The fairly small clearing. Branches smashed off the trees, apparently by this object as it had first come down and perhaps as it had taken off again.
Did it look, I don't know if you'll know this detail offhand, but did it look like it had almost incinerated what was in its trail, or like it had a rough landing and, you know, there's a bumpiness to where the branches used to be and stuff like that, if that makes sense?
There were burn marks and scorch marks on the sides of some of the trees. And there were 3 indentations in the ground, broadly speaking in the shape of a triangle. And bear in mind, this is December, UK. It was freezing cold. The ground was fairly frozen. Colonel Halt has estimated that the object must have weighed several tons to have caused the indentations that it did. And at one point, I think a couple of the witnesses, both Colonel Halt and Jim Penniston, literally poured plaster of Paris into one of the holes, or maybe more than one, to get a mold of what the strut, or whatever you call it, the landing leg, whatever terminology, to what it looked like. It was not a particularly scientific.
But still, do we have that mold?
Yeah, we have that mold somewhere.
Like Britain has it, or?
You know what? I want to say that I think Colonel Halt still has it.
Oh, he kept it.
He kept it because when he left...
Can we pull up Colonel Halt, if you don't mind?
Yeah. And maybe Jim has one too. You know, these people are quite sneaky at like taking things which you would think would be in the official case file. Yeah. But this was more kind of personal memorabilia. One time, I forget whether it was Chuck or Jim. One of them was telling me that one time he took it somewhere and TSA kind of like, what the heck
TSA
is
stopped
this?
Him. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck is this?
This guy's still alive.
Yeah. Now,
oh, shit.
I think he's about 80
Yeah,
now.
he's on his way out, but maybe.
But
we
he's
can
a
get
friend
him
of
in.
mine, and
You know him still?
Yeah.
You think he'd come in and do a podcast about this?
I don't know if he'd come in. He's based. Where is he based? I do know, but I've kind of forgotten.
All right, we'll talk about it off air.
Yeah.
That's
I
interesting.
think by a spooky coincidence, at one time he moved to Woodbridge in Virginia, and the name, of course, of one of the two bases was Woodbridge. was is it just one of those spooky?
It's a little perfect. I don't know.
Coincidences, or is it something? I don't know what it is.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
so Colonel Halt, he goes out to the landing site, but one of the people that he takes with him is a guy called Munro Nevels. And Munro Nevels is the disaster preparedness officer, and he has with him a Geiger counter. And, of course, this is where I say, look, thus far we've talked quite a bit about saying eyewitness testimony from military personnel, some quite senior, but it is just testimony. Here we're segueing into physical evidence stuff, because Munro Nevels takes... he surveys the area with the Geiger counter, and he finds peak readings right in those 3 indentations. Not dangerous enough that he calls a halt and says, hey, back off, but enough of a spike reading to be like, whoa, something happened here, what the heck? And that's written into Colonel Halt's initial incident report sent to the British Ministry of Defence. So, because at some stage after this, of course, the base commander, the wing commander, says, hey, you've got to tell the Brits about this.
Yeah, so how long after was that? That was my next question.
A little bit too long.
Like a day?
Oh, no, like about 10 days.
That's sketchy.
It's a long, complicated, bureaucratic saga.
You guys had to be pissed about that.
We were a little, a UFO investigation. A UFO investigation is like a police investigation.
Yes.
As I said before, the first 48 is critical. To get a written report from the U.S. Air Force saying that there's been a landing. Oh, but by the way, it was like 2 weeks ago now. Yeah.
That's not great.
We were not, I say we, of course, I was only doing the cold case review, so I was not the contemporaneous investigator.
Someone got chewed out.
Somebody
for that
was, well, I don't know if they did, but if you know how to read very polite British sarcasm, some of the documents in the now declassified file reveal a degree of irritation with the US authorities for the delay and for the lack of information sharing. So, for example, this object was briefly tracked on radar, and there's a sarcastic comment along the lines of, perhaps the Americans would care to share this information with us. I won't have time to get into this, and it's a level of detail too far, but that the status of forces agreement is the overarching, the NATO status of forces agreement is the overarching policy document that kind of sets out the framework for how all this works in terms of US bases on British soil. And you can have all sorts of esoteric things, like what if an American serviceman shoots an American serviceman on the American base who investigates? What if an American shoots a Brit? What if it happens off the base in the forest? And there are all sorts of kind of permutations of this. Who has jurisdiction? Who has primacy? Anyone can have jurisdiction. Jurisdiction can be concurrent, but only one person has primacy, self-evidently. So,
what's the difference?
Jurisdiction is the legal authority to investigate something. Primacy is who has the lead for it.
Okay. So it gets weird.
It gets weird, and to be honest, confusion about that is one of the things that led to the delay and the poor information sharing on this case. But the $64,000 question is about this level of radioactivity.
I feel like it's worth a little more than that. But
It's,
you know,
well, and
add a few zeros maybe. Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.